국회의 계엄 해제 요구가 있어
The president of South Korea there making another surprise TV address. This time, he said he would lift the martial law that he declared earlier. It saw the military storm into the country's National Assembly and a crowd of protesters gather outside. The CBC's Sarah Galashan is watching for developments on that story. And Sarah, South Korea experienced a whirlwind of political turmoil in just a few hours as many people in that country were probably asleep.
Yeah, it was a chaotic night. I think that's definitely a fair description, Andrew. But the Yonhap news agency in South Korea is now reporting that cabinet in South Korea has agreed to lift martial law, that the military has disbanded the original command. And this is after the president's address just last hour. He said that he would accept the National Assembly's demand and lift the order that he made really just hours earlier, but it was a late night address, as you say. Late Tuesday night, he went on TV. Many people, as you point out, probably asleep. Certainly some of them were. And he declared martial law, saying that it was necessary in order to defend against the threat of North Korean communist forces. Now, this declaration was a surprise. And what a declaration of martial law in South Korea means is that political protests are not allowed. Protests are not allowed. Media is controlled. No parliamentary activities are allowed either. But despite that, upon having this declaration made, thousands went to the National Assembly, gathering outside, protesting the fact that this had happened. They protested through the night. The military was there. They were inside the building itself and on the outside, preventing anyone from entering. There was a little bit of pushing, but it didn't, as far as we can tell, get in any way out of control. As well, despite all of this, 190 of the 300 parliamentarians in South Korea managed to get inside the National Assembly, and they held a unanimous vote, that vote being to lift and defy this declaration of martial law. The speaker calling the declaration invalid. But from the military, what we had heard earlier is that they would not consider what the National Assembly had done valid. It had to, reversing the order of martial law had to, in fact, come from the president. And as I say, in just the last maybe hour and a half now, we have heard reports of and then confirmation hearing from President Yoon himself that he would and now has lifted martial law. It is now 6 a.m. on Wednesday morning, so it is still early morning. It has been, as you say, certainly a chaotic night in South Korea, but the order is lifted, and it has been extraordinary to watch it all unfold so quickly.
And Sarah, adding to the pressure to end martial law, a number of world leaders weighed in with concerns, starting with the U.S.
Yes, certainly the U.S. We also had concerns that were, the Kremlin had said that they were watching closely. In Britain, we heard that there were concerns and they were again watching closely. The U.S. did actually have a briefing, a lunchtime briefing with a White House spokesperson who's called South Korea a vital partner, saying that the U.S. had not been given any advance notice by the president in South Korea that this was something that he was going to do, despite the fact that it happened, that there had been no change to U.S. posture in the area. No indication, despite that this was a scene of some chaos, that they were in any way changing military situations in that area. They were watching what was happening very closely. They said as well there was no indication that North Korea was trying to take advantage of any of the chaos that was unfolding. There was no impact to U.S. forces in the area. They said that counterparts in Washington were in contact with all sort of levels of the South Korean government, not saying whether or not there was any direct communication with the South Korean president, but being very clear what the message to the South Korean president was from the U.S. because of that National Assembly vote. Take a listen to what they said.
We want to see these political disputes resolved peacefully and in accordance with the rule of law. And of course, such a vote in the legislature would be consistent with that approach. But we're continuing to remain in close touch with our ROK counterparts, and I'm sure we'll read out any conversations that may or may not take place over the coming days.
So now what you have in that parliamentary building in South Korea is officials who are removing literally furniture that had been boarded up against doors to prevent people from entering. They're taking that furniture down. They're putting it back. There are questions, of course, now as to what's going to happen next. Martial law has been lifted, but certainly those who are in opposition, elected officials in opposition, are saying that the president, they feel, should step down or be impeached given what has happened overnight in South Korea. Martial law, it may have been short-lived, but Andrew, the ramifications of this story, they won't be. It's certainly going to be something that continues for a while.
All right, Sarah, thank you.